Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode 5, I think this is, of Critical the History of Pro Wrestling Video Games. I am your host, Mongo, joined as always by my co host in person that records the podcast, Liger Busa. And as always, how you doing this week, bud?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Well, other than the fact I walked like 15,000 steps at my job on Friday, I guess I'm okay. I'm getting paid well. That's all that really matters. But
Exactly.
this week we're going to be talking about the acclaimed Legends of Wrestling games and all of the things that come with that. But first, we will get to the news because there's like a lot of it. Probably the biggest news is the AEW Fight Forever trailer we talked about last week. No release date, which was like, as I was saying literally right before we started recording, that was like the one thing I wanted that I didn't get from that trailer.
Should have had at this point, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's an ESRB rating now, and we have a look at the new cover. It's not key art, it's the cover because they literally showed it at the bottom left on the pay per view.
L-
And if that's the finalized cover and they have an ESRB rating, that game's got to be close to going to print because there's people have noticed there's ratings popping up for it in other regions.
In regards to that cover, that's a hell of a lot better than the one that they had. It fits the aesthetic of, Rampage or Dynamite, sorry. So, I mean, I think they should have kept Punk on the cover, but
I agree.
other than that, it's a much better cover than the one they had.
Yeah, I thought the cover they had before with like the green kind of matched the theming of like the Revolution pay-per-view posters.
Yes.
But a friend of mine also pointed out there was so much empty space left on that cover because it was like a white back or white foreground that kind of got ripped through and then there were just the six people. This one it fills out a little bit better, and also I might have talked about this on the air. I know I've talked about it off the air. You have to have fucking Sting on that cover because he's Sting.
Yes. Yeah.
People are going to be like, "Oh shit, I remember him." And also he was the big star, excuse me, in WCW during the time frame the games that this game is a spiritual successor to in part were released.
Putting Sting on the
Go on.
cover makes a hell of a lot more sense than Raven, right?
Yeah, I listen, who didn't love Raven in 1998?
Raven. He didn't love himself
Uh,
enough. That was his whole problem.
well, yeah. I still it yeah, it's weird cuz I get the whole we're having a representative of each group in the game, but the fucking Sting really should have. Sting should have been the Wolfpack guy on the cover and not Nash, with all due respect to Kevin Nash. As for the contents of the trailer, we saw our first look at Orange Cassidy, MJF, Sting, Jade Cargill. We finally saw what she looks like in the game. Is there anybody else we saw for the first time in that trailer? I'm trying to think
Danielson.
because, like, right, yeah, we were just talking about him before we started recording. So we saw 5 characters for the first time in the trailer. We saw Moxley and Hangman Page in motion for the first time, and we saw that title belts are included. Basically, both women's titles, the world title. I don't think they showed the TNT title, but if the TBS belt's in, the TNT belt's in. That's probably kind of just how that works out. No tag team stuff at all in this trailer, which is very interesting. But I'm also assuming now that the Elite are back and the Young Bucks are back specifically, a tag centric trailer is probably coming.
I would think so. I think the a showcase trailer with like the Young Bucks and the Lucha Brothers. I think that would probably be the next step.
Yeah. We saw how wacky the weapons are. You can pick up a football and fucking bean somebody in the back of the head with it, as Jungle Boy does to John Moxley in that trailer. I saw a little like, well, this is really goofy, but here's my thing with weapons in wrestling games, especially a game this style. This is based on a game where you pulled weapons, one, out of the fucking crowd, and two, included but were not limited to oversized, like human sized copies of The Rock's autobiography.
And cheese
I don't
heads.
really have an issue. Yeah, the foam cheese gimmicks too. Yeah, the fucking and I know the sickle was used by fucking like Mr. Pogo and Onita, so like that's maybe like I'm reaching too far to call that wacky, but it's still like you're not using it like they did. You were like fucking overhand swinging it. Like you kill somebody if you did that.
And the thing about it is, even if they're goofy, you know what? They're fun. So
Yeah,
why not?
yeah, that was kind of what I was gonna loop back around to. Was like, I don't give a shit what weapons are in the game as long as like the weapon play is fun, and if you've got goofy shit in, I want to be able to do goofy shit with it. Like Darby Allin skateboard, you can jump on it and fucking ride it and do a dive over the top rope. That's
That
awesome.
that was probably my favorite part of the trailer. Saying that looked really cool.
Yeah, and we saw the Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa screenshot on what was it, Thursday,
I believe so. Yeah.
where not only were thumbtacks confirmed, and there's a bit about thumbtacks from the trailer we can talk about as well. Um, but blood stains the mat, it stains the ropes, and as we saw in the trailer as well, blood stains the bodies of the characters. There's a shot of Chris Jericho
There might be
with
more
blood on the front of his torso.
there might be more blood in this game than Mortal Kombat. Like, holy shit.
The Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa screenshot was insane.
Yeah.
Like, just giant fucking puddles of blood of varying degrees of drying. So I'm assuming, much like Fire Pro World, it disappears after a little bit. But holy shit!
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's gonna be teen rated. I don't know how they got away with that much blood.
My guess is because it disappears and it doesn't stay.
Right.
That's the best guess I've got, because Fire Pro does the same thing, and
That's
Fire
right,
Pro
yeah.
was T rated too. Fire Pros also didn't look like one shot and it's like a fucking Mortal Kombat fatality either, because we see in the trailer there's a crossbody and the thumbtacks are not a canned animation. If somebody lands on them, there's like a cell animation for it, but it's not like when they did the thumbtacks in Legends of WrestleMania or SmackDown on the Wii, where like you have to do an ultimate control move onto it and then it's its own little fucking sequence that breaks the gameplay. It was a bump onto the thumbtacks, blood splatter immediately, and it looked like you could just continue playing. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, and I imagine the thumbtacks will probably disappear over time too, right? At least the ones that are in the character model themselves.
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
They'd have to. Sting has the snow during his entrance, which I thought was cool. We saw MJF doing the power of the punch, which was prophetic given the finish of the main event of Full Gear. I was kind of disappointed it wasn't the old Power of the Punch animation from like the THQ like GameCube games,
Right.
but there might be some legal issues why they can't use that, or maybe they just didn't want to use it because I don't fucking know. But I was tickled when I saw that in the trailer. Chris Jericho has both the regular Walls of Jericho and the Lion Tamer, if you're somebody who wants to play as that guy in a video game in the year 2023. John Moxley looks really cool in the game. He is the Cradle Pile Driver. We didn't see the Death Rider, unfortunately. One thing I thought was really strange was there was no Kenny Omega in the trailer.
Yeah, maybe just because he was all over like the not the Tokyo Game Show. What was the other one?
Gamescom.
Yeah, because he was, they showed off the demo with him and Adam Cole. Adam Cole was in it a little bit, but not too much. So maybe they just thought like, well, for this one we'll showcase more characters, new characters.
Yeah, and there was a lot of intergender wrestling. We talked about this.
Yeah, they're definitely putting a focus on that. Like, this is obviously something you can't do in the WWE games, but we have it, so.
And that was kind of like the big moment of the very, very first trailer that we saw in November of 2020 was Omega ducks the Judas effect, and then it turns around and there's Sheeta, and Sheeta hits him with the Falcon Arrow, and then the I don't know. I'll expose myself here. I don't know if the whole sequence is called Tamashi or if it's just the knee strike, but she does her whole finishing sequence to Kenny, and that's kind of, it's where they show you like the AEW logo, and then there was like the Meltzer driver clip of like just the generic creator wrestler mode guys. Like I said, the only thing I didn't get from this trailer that I wanted was the release date. Everything looked fucking wonderful. I agree with the criticism that Bryan Danielson looks a little weird, but also I saw a reply to one of my friends saying like, Danielson is one of those guys that never looks good in any way other than like the actual human being, because he's a very hard guy to capture the likeness. There's only a couple of action figures that really look like him, and I can't think of that many like character models in the like WWE games that I thought were really good either.
Me personally, I thought the one that looked like the worst was probably MGF. I mean,
He did look a little weird.
yeah, it's not as distracting. Like you're not like, oh, that's not him at all. I mean, there's definitely some of them in there, but like it could use a bit more detail on his face.
Yeah, and I think maybe the facial expressions, like someone took a screenshot of him like during the entrance where like he had his like mouth like
He's all
closed
teeth.
versus open.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, it is a Ukes game, so
that's true.
we really are throwing it back. And obviously, we talked about this before we started recording. If the people that follow me on Twitter probably know where this is going. I mentioned last week, and I've mentioned a couple other times, I think, Ultra Pro Wrestling, the day of the Gamescom gameplay reveal, decided to absolutely show their ass. And well, this doesn't look like a true Aki game or whatever the fuck the verbiage was. He deleted all the tweets, so he clearly didn't stand behind what he was saying. And he got dumped on by like not even dumped on. Like they took a shit on him. Like half the community, it felt like he did. Yesterday when I woke up, I refreshed Twitter, and right there it was. A tweet about this inspires me to make my own trailer to get funding for the project. And I quote tweeted it. I'm locked, so obviously this serves no purpose, but like you don't have to take shots constantly at the mainstream games. We had Dave Wisnowski on 2 weeks ago. And again, ultimate respect to Dave for coming on and owning up for a lot of the shit. Dave spent a lot of those early years of PWX shitting on the SmackDown games, shitting on the GameCube games, shitting on the Xbox games deserved it, but it didn't fucking do anything for PWX. They did not acquire funding because somebody who had the fucking means to hand them funding was like, oh man, you're so right about SmackDown. It's a soulless pile of shit. You don't need to constantly like needle the AEW game because here's the reality. And I've said this both, I believe, on this podcast and on Twitter and off recorded conversations. If you are somebody who is making an independent game where the end goal is to play like an Aki game, the doomsday clock struck fucking midnight the second the Adam Cole and Kenny Omega footage dropped because they've already done it. And if all you've got to offer is a game that, quite frankly, looks like a fucking Flash game with, you can argue they're legally ambiguous, but when you're using Triple H and Steve Austin's theme music to show these characters off, or you're putting RVD and Taz in an ECW ring with RVD and Taz on the fucking characters' nameplates, you're not going to get funding. Nobody's going to hand you money for something like that.
Yeah,
because
you're not going to nobody's going to touch you in that situation.
Anybody who has the means to fund you is going to immediately recognize, oh, they're using somebody else's intellectual property. And that brings me to another thing. There was a tweet from them that said something to the effect of, all of the systems in the game are 70 to 90% complete. Bullshit. You can't go on Twitter and tell people this game is a year plus away, and then when the AEW trailer drops, you change it to most of the systems are complete, because I have some very bad news for you. That clip of RVD and Taz, that grapple animation looked really bad. The way it snapped. If your shit's like 70 to 90% complete, that should probably be ironed out. There's a lot of like how is the gameplay 70 to 90% complete when you were like 2 weeks ago talking about I should stop working on all the other stuff and focus on the actual gameplay? How does that make any sense?
The wording to me was very vague, like game systems. What exactly do you mean by that?
Yeah, it's frustrating, and we talked about this. A lot of people that are our age might remember PWX, but I'm willing to bet an exponentially higher number have no idea. This is PWX from like 2003 without the AJ Styles endorsement. And 20 years later, when I can spot bullshit a mile away, I'm not 12 years old anymore. And I've tried to be nice. And listen, if the game comes out, I hope it's good. At this point, I don't think there's a game.
Yeah.
And even if there is a game,
it all feels very similar.
I don't think it's going to be good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I've talked to other people, and I mean, I don't want to start shit with anybody, but there was the Gakta thread about like there's a degree of which like you should not huff your own farts as an indie wrestling game dev. UPW, go look at that fucking thread, because that's not just aimed at them, I don't think, because Virtual Basement, who we're going to talk about in a minute, also kind of got in their own bag with that. But you don't need to fucking take aim at like, if you're a fan and you want to talk shit about like the two mainstream games and say you'd rather support the indie game, that's one thing. You've got no skin in the game. You're just talking about who you're going to give your money to. And if I know wrestling fans, you're going to buy all three anyway, because we're all sick. Unfortunately, we're all going to buy everything because we have no choice. But if you're developing an indie game, especially one that's trying to do the same thing as a mainstream game that has already clearly proven it's doing what you're trying to do, it does not serve you in any way, shape, or fucking form to publicly shit on them every chance you get. Dave will tell you that. Any indie dev who's done anything will tell you it's not a good idea. Wrestling games is such a small niche, and it's such an underserved niche compared to like every fucking thing else. The last thing we need is more fuckheads coming in like, well, we're going to make a great game and fuck everybody. Like, those people tend to not release shit. Because how many other indie games, even if you don't remember their names, have popped up in the last 20 years doing the exact same shit this guy's doing?
A hell of a lot.
Yeah, I've seen this shit before. I'm sorry. I'm done being super nice about this. That game's doomed, because when you have somebody who's that like up their own ass about this is how I think this game should be marketed, it's not going to go anywhere. Like, what fucking publisher is going to jump on and hand you money for a game where you're taking shots at the guys who are actually selling like a ton of games in the case of 2K22, or a game that's probably going to do pretty goddamn well in terms of Fight Forever?
It's very bizarre
Nobody's.
to basically promote yourself as sort of like the underdog, like, oh, we're not the big guys, we're doing our own thing. Just to position yourself like that, because I don't know, it's just a very weird stance. It's like no one's taking shots at you. You're presenting yourself as like the Rocky Balboa, fighting Ivan Drago. We're small, we're gonna do it, we're gonna make a great game, but nobody's asking you to do that. Just do your own thing and stop using copyrighted material. You don't own it.
Yeah, and also that tweet about like we're not aiming for realistic graphics like the other developers. Yeah, bro, Fight Forever is totally looking realistic with like the giant hands from fucking Def Jam.
No, I didn't understand that at all, because obviously Fight Forever isn't, and 2K is, but that's a completely different game. So
And of all the characters from 2K you're going to use for that, you're going to use The Rock, who actually looks like the fucking Rock?
yeah,
Why not use Cesaro, who looks like shit?
I mean, there's a lot of characters in 2K that don't look very good. There was a plethora of choices to go with. So
And The Rock was like a really bad one, because, I mean, maybe if they used Rock from 2K20, if this was 2 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, they got a point. But like, I mean, I guess they picked like one of the camera angles in Rock's entrance where he doesn't look like great, but still, like, you can clearly tell it's the fucking Rock.
also,
As opposed to the character from their game that
which
I've seen people speculate was Triple H, Brian Kendrick, Test, Edge. You don't fucking know.
when they talk about funding, are they talking about like actual, trying to get like a publisher or something? Or are they just talking about like a Kickstarter?
Yeah, they've never answered that.
Yeah,
Here's the thing. I don't see a wrestling game Kickstarter working, because if you remember Saturday Nights, the indie wrestling game that was gonna have like the Young Bucks in it,
yeah.
they had a super. I mean, Sonny Bone and I talked about this at one point. I think it was Sonny Bone, at least, about how unrealistic of a goal that was, because they wanted six figures. I mean, what are you going to go on and ask for if you're that game on Kickstarter? Especially if most of our systems are 70 to 90% complete. Why do you need funding to push over the line then? We're just and it's their fucking like wording is such like mixed messaging. We're just a couple of people doing this in our free time. The game's almost done, but we need funding. The game's over a year away. What the fuck?
Yeah, I don't know.
Pick one fucking side, god damn it.
I'm kind of burnt out on Ultra Pro. We talk about it every week because they post something every week, but it's never
And it's the
ending.
same shit every week
Yeah, I
too.
know. Yeah.
We're just being a lot less nice about it the last 2 episodes because it's fucking annoying.
Yeah, I mean, I really like I had good things to say about when they put in the arenas, like the ECW logos and stuff was obviously a bad idea, but I like the arena designs. I like the menu designs, but like for everything that I like, there's always something that comes up. I'm like, don't do that, and it comes up too much now. So
Yeah, there's aspects that they've shown that I think are cool. Unfortunately, the personality of the person behind it has completely alienated me. Like I said, I genuinely do hope the game comes out and it's good because more good wrestling games is the fucking cure for the situation we've been in for the last 15 goddamn years. The problem is, I don't think for a second this game's going to actually be good. When you go on Twitter and you argue with people that SmackDown was just a fighting game in a wrestling ring, or better yet, you say Def Jam was just a fighting game aimed at casuals in a wrestling ring when it's literally the Aki engine. It's what you're trying to do.
yep.
What the fuck? How does this make any sense?
It doesn't. The whole thing doesn't make too much sense.
God. And that's the first time I've gotten like really angry on this fucking podcast. But Jesus Christ in heaven above. Speaking of Virtual Basement, which I briefly did earlier, they announced Sabu this week for the Wrestling Code, which is weird because, like you, I thought he was already announced.
Yeah, I thought he was announced forever ago.
Yeah, real quick, Ultra Pro, Dre 41 Gaming's dropping an interview with them, and I'm sure, Dre, if you ever hear this, you've always been nice to me every time I've ever talked to you. I'm sure he's not going to fucking softball that whole interview and gas them up like he does every other dev he talks to. Anyway, back to Virtual Basement, who is a dev that Dre is fucking gassed up because he's working with them, and that's cool. They also showed clips of Ashley Vox doing motion capture, and I think we've talked about this in one of the episodes that didn't end up getting recorded. The idea of having everybody do their own motion capture is cool, but how viable is it for a roster that big? And also, like, how much time are you going to spend cleaning up the animations? And how much money is that going to take too?
Yes, there's something to be said too for having people do their own motion capture when it's people like Kurt Angle and DDP and Vampiro. I mean, it's better than having Chase Stevens, for example, do their moves because he doesn't wrestle anything like them. But these guys are a lot older, so they don't move as well as they used to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like that's got to be cleaned up in some way as well. Do you think?
Yeah, and also, like, that's me pouring tea. I swear I'm not pissing on audio.
Okay.
I just in case anybody heard that. If not, then I just made that comment for no reason. I never liked that they had, and I think Harry Smith is a good wrestler. I never understood why they had him or like guys who were of similar build motion capturing the Kane entrance. It comes down to the thing of like, you can show somebody, I can show you how like The Rock did the Rock Bottom. You're not going to do it 1-to-1. And as we've seen with the WWE games, we're not even getting like an approximation of 1-to-1. So to have the guys like Angle doing it, yeah, that's cool. But also, he's not 2001 Kurt Angle anymore. You're gonna have to clean that shit up. DDP's in fantastic shape, and that's great. You probably are gonna have to clean this shit up a little bit.
I think I talked about this before, but in the Vampiro mocap, like he does a spinning wheel kick in it. It's very low. It doesn't look as he didn't look as agile as he used to be.
Yeah, you've got to clean that shit up. I asked Dre at one point. I want to say on YouTube. Might have been on Twitter, might have been on Discord, might have been on Instagram. I don't remember. I asked Dre at one point, like, the guys who are like really physically fucked or like have passed away, like, how are they going to handle those? Are they going to hand animate? Are they going to do mocap? And all he told me was like the move sets are going to be on point. They're going to have all of their stuff. I'm really curious how they handle it because obviously for like Undisputed, which is formerly Esports Boxing Club, everybody they could get to motion capture did motion capture, but obviously Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, they're not alive anymore. So when the game's built on having like super authentic movements, you've either got to find somebody who can do a reasonable approximation or you've got to spend the boatload to hand animate. So I'm wondering how they're going to handle that. And I completely, New Jack was like the one guy that I had in mind. Because anybody can swing a fucking weapon. Nobody's swinging a weapon like New Jack. That's a level of commitment nobody else has.
Also, no one dives like him the same way either. So when he dives from like, you know, the stands or anything, he's always got like a specific splash where he puts his arms out in front of him like that.
Yeah, he just kind of like falls.
Yeah.
You know the closest thing to the New Jack dive that I can think of is like the Vader Big Van Crush, like Vader's like second rope splash he used to do.
That makes sense. I can see that.
Except like Vader protected people and that shit New Jack didn't. I miss New Jack. That guy was great. Bastante Bueno, Lucha Libre, there was an update. There's a new character. I think I don't have it up in front of me now because I walked away from my computer. I believe the name is Tomas Nomas. We're very prepared this week, obviously. I had a rough draft of all the things that I saw on Twitter as of like yesterday. And then they dropped the Bastante Bueno preview for today. Yeah, his name is Tomas Nomas. He's a hard-hitting Rudo that takes after U.S.-style heel antics. We've talked about this before. They have an arena now that looks like Arena Mexico.
Yeah.
And
cool.
this game looks absolutely stunning graphically.
Oh, okay. They just released this update like an hour ago.
Yeah, I saw it like right before we started recording. This looks amazing. If you're a fan of Lucha, this is a game to watch. There's almost certainly not going to be licensed characters, and that's fine. A Lucha game that takes after the Aki engine is absolutely something I think we need. So it's cool that this game is progressing as much as it is. Because I remember when the first version of it dropped and it had Keiji Muto's Trans Magic theme as the background music, and I thought it was really cool then. This looks like worlds better than that.
Riza's Edge animation looked really good.
Yeah, it did. All these animations look devastating, which is, again, that's one of the benefits of hand animation, but also he's clearly not trying to do realistic animations. The bumps are kind of bouncy, the limbs kind of flail. It's very cartoony. I dig it. I dig it a lot. Is that it for this week? Oh, WWE 2K23. The rumor is we're getting some sort of news this week. As for what it is, it might just be like the Rey Mysterio teaser we got at WrestleMania in 2021. But if the game is really launching in March, I expect like an initial trailer with maybe a release date.
I would think so.
Something along those lines. I'm interested to see who the cover athlete is for that game because there was a point a few months ago where I was convinced it was going to be Cody, and I think it should be. Because even if he's in the AEW game, they can't advertise him. That's just one of those things you have to find out when you get the game. It would be smart for them to advertise Cody as the cover athlete for 2K because then you get the people that don't know he's in the AEW game and like he's right there on the front of your game. Like, no, buy our game. We've got Cody.
Yeah, it could be Roman.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because 2K20 is the lowest selling entry in the main series, or at least was. I don't know if the pandemic dragging out 2K22's launch helped that game's sales at all, but they had Roman and Becky on the cover of that, and
that's right,
that game's universally considered like a giant fucking turd. So do you circle back to Roman? I mean, you could because he's Roman, he's your top guy, but also like people still remember 2K20 being a pile of shit, and he's on the cover of it.
It's probably going to be whoever they're doing the showcase mode on, right? Like we don't even know who that's going to be right now.
Yeah, we don't even know if Showcase has to come back because one of the things, and you can say whatever you want about Mike Straw's reporting, I've said a lot. Everything he said was going to be in 2K22 minus like the NXT DLC pack, there were a couple of names that didn't end up being in. Everything else he reported was fucking like solid. Brian Mazik speculated GM mode might be back. Mike Straw was the first one to go, "Oh no, it's back. It's happening." And 2K got mad at him for it. Like fucking Al Stavola liked a tweet where somebody photoshopped clown makeup onto Mike Straw, and Mike Straw had like a shit fit over it. Rightfully so. I mean, I joked about it because like he really kept going back to it. But like if I was him, I'd be pissed too because like all you're doing is your job. Does it suck if somebody reveals something before you're ready to publicly announce it? Yeah, but like
That
you
that's
don't have to go to that
that
level.
happens all the time anyway. That's the scoop game, right?
Yeah, I mean, fucking the Fight Forever trailer dropped what, like 18 hours,
By
19 hours
PlayStation.
before they actually. Yeah, shout outs to fucking PlayStation. I forget where I was going with all of this.
Before we
Because I talked about Al Stavola.
Well, before we get on the topic of what we're going to cover this week, which is Legends of Wrestling, I did go back to 2K22 this week because
Okay.
um, for those who don't know, there's a creator called What's the Status who he does a lot of cool things. Like he's made it so you can download creations as alt attires for default wrestlers in the game. So you can have a creation of say Triple H from 1998 as an alt for default Triple H in the game. But he's also done
Hmm.
interesting things like he's found that sound files from previous games are still on the discs, are still in 2K22. So like Adam Cole, baby, or Bray Wyatt saying "I'm the Eater of Worlds." Paige's scream is still on there, and he's found a way to upload these creations onto community creations with the audio intact. So when you download his Adam Cole, the crowd will say Adam Cole, baby. And he showed off some videos of this, but I like to see it for myself, so I downloaded Adam Cole and I was like, sure enough, it works. He also uploaded a Gunter creation. It was by someone else, I think Iconic 2K. That once you download is an alt attire for Walter in the game. So I downloaded that as well. And on a previous episode, I had mentioned that I had tried to start universe mode, but it was crashing on me constantly. I ended up, I just said, fuck it, because once you go into the actual shows themselves, obviously you can edit the matches, but it's so stupid. Like, they'll have tag teams on the opposite sides constantly, and I'm just like, I don't want to edit this every time, fuck it. So I deleted it. So I downloaded Gunta the other day, and I was like, well, I'm going to create the Imperium stable. I have to recreate it in my, create stables, tag teams. So I added them, and then I went to the entrance, and I'm looking for Imperium, and I'm like, I can't find it. And I'm going like up and down. And I'm like, I know Imperium's entrance is in the game because all three of them are default. So where is it? And I'm like constantly searching. I'm just like, I just can't find the fucking entrance. So like I Google Imperium 2K22 missing entrance, and I find like Reddit threads from like 7 months ago saying that, oh yeah, there's some sort of issue with universe mode where it deletes the entrances from the game. Like, what? How is that possible?
That doesn't make any sense.
So I don't have Imperium's entrance now. I don't
But
get it.
yeah, how does that happen?
I don't know. Like
Why does that happen?
I swear to God, their entrance is in the game, but when you look through the list, it is not there. And like that was just one of the things. Like I was playing Here Comes the Pain earlier the week, and you go through those menus and it's so fast. Like everything's very quick just to get through. 2K22, everything feels so slow. Like you're going through the menus, it takes forever to respond, and I think a lot of that, like I've heard that once once you get to like the image limit, like the game itself slows down on you. The more I played 2K22, like I started off when I first got it, I was like, this is an improvement. I like it a lot. And every time I go back to it, I'm more and more frustrated with this game. It feels like it's very poorly optimized. I've got entrances disappearing on me. I don't know how. And the sad thing is, like, if people were reporting this 7 months ago and they haven't added it, but haven't fixed this, I can't help but think that next
So
year's game is going to be a disaster as well.
so what you're telling me is that everybody's saying Ukes being gone would mean this game was going to be a significant improvement and the patches would roll out easier. The game is still a broken pile of shit, and it might not have been Ukes' fault.
Yeah,
Huh.
like if you're,
Funny how that works.
you know, everyone started the same way when it came out. Like everyone had high praise for it, but the more updates they released, it seemed like people got angrier and angrier. As
I
the updates came out.
I liked the game a lot for the first like week and a half. But also by the end of the first week, I was like, yeah, the gameplay's kind of limited. And I said it, I think, a week or two ago when we were talking. It's like the Acclaim games for the PlayStation, not the ones we're about to talk about, and we will talk about them, I promise. Um, where once you realize up, down, up circle is a move everybody has, and forward, X does this, and up, down, square does this. You don't need to look at the move list anymore because everybody ostensibly has the same fucking moves.
Right, yeah.
That was where I was kind of like, okay, so all of this depth they promised us really isn't there. And I don't think the control scheme's necessarily more user friendly or intuitive. Also, they weirdly made grappling moves like a non-factor. Like you can grapple, but like there's grapples that are part of fucking like strike chains. So why would you ever just do a grapple move?
Yeah, I mean, I understand like the gameplay complaints. I mean, for me personally, right now, it's the menus themselves and the shit that doesn't make any sense. Like disappearing entrances, like the deletion utility. There's images in there that say they aren't used, but they actually are. So you actually have to go through every image individually, as opposed to clicking delete all unused images because it'll delete something that you don't want to be deleted. It's shit like that that needs to be fixed that they don't even attempt to. That really pisses me off.
Here's a maybe unpopular opinion, but maybe people should stop relying so goddamn much on like user uploaded images, especially if it has this effect on the game. Because I've said it a bunch. There's a lot of created wrestlers that get like I see them get posted on Twitter, and it's CM Punk where like the hair is like textured onto his fucking face, and it looks like shit. But they don't give you the tools in create a wrestler mode to actually make him where like his hair is like in his face.
Right.
But if the answer is like load up, this game gives you a finite amount of images that you can use before it just decides it's gonna go fucking sicko mode on itself. Maybe stop relying on those fucking textures. Because like that ECW Lives pack for 2K19 was neat until you realize like the gameplay doesn't support literally any of these wrestler styles. But you couldn't have the whole fucking pack downloaded.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, but
If you tried
the game
if you
shouldn't be
tried to have the
so.
whole fucking thing, you'd hit the image limit.
But
It's
and the
bullshit.
game shouldn't be so fucked up at its core that you can't have those images in the game. You know, like if people want to download hair textures that look like that, I don't like them. But if they do, then whatever. You should be able to
Yeah, go
download
for it.
them and not have a fucking 1,000 image limit, or get to that point and have the game goddamn break on you because it can't handle it. Like what the fucking point is that? You know? If your game's so
Yeah,
your,
it's
your game's so fucked up that you're doing something that the game allows you to do, but it's gonna break on you on the way there. So like what? Like fix your shit.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who got angry about something on this episode now.
It's just like it's here's what you can do, but you can't really do it because the game's gonna die on you. It doesn't make any sense. Like there's so much they need to
Yeah.
fix internally outside of gameplay. Like obviously there's a lot of issues with gameplay, but when you're telling me I can download 1,000 images, but I really can't because the game's gonna crash on me multiple times, or I can start a universe, but I can't because you're gonna delete entrances that are default in the game. How does that make any sense? Like it's so goddamn
It
broken,
doesn't.
and they've this has been reported, like I said, 7 months ago, and nothing's been done to fix this. I'm not asking you to turn the game upside down. It's just fix things that shouldn't be a problem to begin with. Ay caramba.
It's it's very funny to me though, like I was saying that the narrative became like, well, they don't have ukes anymore, so this game's gonna be better. No, that's not
No,
how it worked at all.
it's in some cases it's worse. I mean, maybe in all cases it's worse. I don't know.
I just
Anyway,
think that shit's funny. To the main event for the week, which is the acclaimed Legends of Wrestling games. I was playing two in Showdown because I don't have one, so I'm going off memory with one. Unfortunately, one phrase came to mind for me specifically playing two, and I want you to tell me if you think I'm insane when I say this. The phrase that I think defines this series best is a lot of great ideas and a lot of really shitty execution.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, the whole concept of the games, Legends of Wrestling, these games came out when at a time when people our age were still teenagers or getting out of our teenage years, and but we grew up with wrestlers from the late 80s, early 90s. To have all these in the video game, that's a fantastic idea, but absolutely, the execution was not there.
I still remember seeing, as I did with the ECW game, the first EGM article about Legends of Wrestling, and I was really, really like hammering my mom to get me a PS2 for Christmas in '01. And I showed her this article. This game's got the Road Warriors and Hulk Hogan and Bret Hart and King Kong Bundy. Because one of the screenshots was just Bundy, just chilling. And like, I didn't end up getting the PS2 for Christmas, obviously, but that game, like the idea of that game blew my mind because, yeah, you know what? WCW's gone. A lot of their guys are in the WWF. ECW's gone. A lot of the guys are in the WWF. So what's the next logical step? You either, do the indie game that was allegedly planned before it became Legends of Wrestling, or you do a Legends game, which is what they ended up doing.
And
And as you said, it's the perfect era for it too.
the indie game wouldn't have had the same impact as a Legends game because you wouldn't have had promotional material with obviously Hogan and Bret Hart and all that.
Yeah.
I like the intro for the first game. So it starts off with black and white footage that turns into pictures. It has a slow version of the song "Rookie" by was it Boy Sets Fire,
Yep.
and then it goes into the actual version of the song. I thought what was kind of weird about it is when they start in the black and white footage, it's like Bret Hart and Hulk Hogan and Jimmy Snuka. I was like, look at this old timey wrestling. It just seemed very strange. Like you think they could have used like Bruno and I think Killer Kowalski was maybe in the first game, might be wrong. But yeah, it was cool.
I love the intros for every game in the
They're
series.
pretty good, yeah.
It's yeah. I I got the GameCube version for my birthday in '02, and it was the coolest wrestling game in the world to me until I played it. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get like a little breakfast into me. I didn't like the move sets, which is going to be a recurring theme, I think, for both of us throughout this.
Hell yeah.
It was 2001, and I guess maybe there was the idea that we can't have these guys wrestle like they actually did because some of these guys wrestled in the 70s when wrestling was slower. And to somebody who was a kid in 2001, you could argue it was less exciting. I don't fucking know. But you got Hulk Hogan doing power bombs. You got Ricky Steamboat flipping the bird and doing the stunner.
When I was playing as RVD and he did a pin where he sits on the chest of his opponent and crosses his arms like Yokozuna after a bonsai drop. And I was like, what the fuck? Why is RVD doing that? He does Jericho's cocky pin. Terry Funk does a springboard plancha. I know he did his version of an acai moonsault a few times, but he never did a plancha quite like that. The movesets are incredibly ridiculous. And I've heard that argument too, that they had limited movesets. Someone said that to me like years ago. King of Colosseum 2 made it work. King of Colosseum series as a whole. Fire Pro has made it work. So, you might see in those games, you might see a wrestler doing a move that they didn't always do, but it was possible. I don't think someone like Abdullah the Butcher was doing Stone Cold Stunners in the 80s, so I hate that shit.
No, he wasn't doing a whole lot in the '80s.
No, he wasn't. Also, the ring announcer in this game, I had a note about the ring announcer. Very cartoony. It's not Gary Michael Capetta, like in the later games. It's this guy who I don't know if he was involved in wrestling in any way, but he's got like a very over the top ring announcing style. The way he says Rob Van Dam, me and my friends would always make fun of it because he goes Rob Van Dam, like very over the top. He doesn't wait for the RVD taunts or anything. He's kind of goofy.
Yeah, he kind of reminded me of like a parody of like a Jimmy Lennon, like a boxing announcer, kind of.
Yeah, he's sort of like Gorgon from Power Move Pro Wrestling. Um, the arenas in this game are very generic. So you've got like your US arena with stars everywhere. I think you've got like maybe there's a Russian arena in this game. I can't remember. No, there wasn't a Russian, but there's like there's high school gyms. There's like a parking lot and stuff like that. They feel like discarded arenas from the Rocky games. If you've ever played those, they're the same style of arenas.
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan, he doesn't have American made in this game. Unfortunately, he's got a generic theme. RVD had his rip-off walk from the ECW games, which I very much appreciated. Ricky Steamboat's got a rip-off of his theme, the Chicago Bulls. Brian Pillman's theme, I don't know what.
Serious.
Yeah, Brian Pillman's theme, I don't know what his is based on in here, but it sounds really cool. And Ivan Putski has AC/DC's Hell's Bells, which I thought was kind of odd, but
Yeah.
interesting at the same time. The career mode. So you pick a territory, you build up excitement in matches, but the matches in this game, if you play against the AI, they're kind of never ending, it feels like. They go on way too long, especially for a game like this. Like matches feel like they last just an extraordinary amount of time. Yeah, as I said, you build up the excitement meter in career mode. I don't know what the fans are getting excited about because the matches all feel the same. So
In this game and two, you basically just do the same shit in every match.
yeah,
Top rope move a couple of times, bump the ref, couple of taunts, weapon attack, bust your opponent open. There's a thing that's like minimum high spots, but like I've never figured out what triggers that or like what it's supposed to actually mean. But what I've noticed is like 3 matches with 100% excitement is enough to get you through because the popularity meter fills up in 3 tiers. When it's at 100%, you get a title shot. So it's like 33% you get a cutscene with your manager, 66% you get a cutscene with your manager, and then 100% you get the title shot.
I forgot that those are voice acted. Like Lou Albano actually speaks to you in those. I thought that was cool. But thankfully, there's a unlock all code on the main menu, so you don't have to go through career mode.
I never knew that.
I like the way the blood drips off the wrestlers. Like you can see the blood dripping off their forehead onto the mat. That's a really neat feature, especially for a game this time. I do like that you can call your manager to distract the referee while you're in a grapple. So while you're in a tie-up, you can press the trigger the manager to distract the referee. The roster isn't as when I think of the Legends of Wrestling games, I always think of a massive roster, and that's mainly just because of 3 and 2. This game obviously doesn't have that big of a roster, so it kind of threw me off a bit. That's all the notes I've got on the first game.
I feel like we need to explain the gameplay.
Yeah, we should probably do that. Yeah.
Okay. So, as I'm trying to eat, I apologize. Gone are the Mortal Kombat button presses for everything. You have a ready grapple, which is like a quick grapple. That's usually like Y or triangle. I think it's actually Y on the GameCube and the Xbox.
Yeah, it's
You have a grapple button,
triangle,
which is circle. And from the grapple, you press a button to go into another clutch. Now, more astute listeners might be thinking, oh, they're about to compare it to King of Colosseum 2. No, we're not. You press circle, triangle, you'll like fold the opponent up for like a pile driver. There's like a bear hug clutch. There's trying to think of all the front grapples now.
suplex.
I literally just played and you can do moves out of the various grapples. Now, there'll be a little meter underneath your special meter that comes up. And the best way to describe this is like the first half of a free throw meter in an old basketball game. You have a sweet spot and you got to hit the button. Both wrestlers will have a meter occasionally. And this is one of the brilliant ideas for Legends of Wrestling. Some guys have where it'll pop up, you can press square or X. Square will link it to like another grapple. X will link it to like a pin or a submission predicament. And for the defending wrestler, the sweet spot is obviously a reversal. I've always thought that grappling system was brilliant. It's just a shame that it was called the ISP, which they never explained what the fuck
That's
that
right, it
acronym
was,
stood
yeah.
for. And you would also in career mode, if you did a bunch of linked moves, you would get bonuses for them periodically. Again, with career mode, there's no rhyme or reason to what actually gives you bonuses. There's the stuff that's obvious, like bumping the ref, bleeding, weapon attack, attack outside the ring, shit like that. But like linked ISP, minimum high spots, none of that ever made any sense. Where
No,
this game goes wrong is that it's really stiff. You can
yeah.
have a great grappling system, but if the game's fucking this wooden and restrictive, it's not fun to play.
It is very stiff, like the movements of the wrestlers, and none of it feels quite right.
It has the classic acclaim game running problem where you press the button and there's like a start to the running animation. You don't just begin running.
Like
You have to
there's
you
matches
have to
that,
switch focus to your tag partner to tag out, like you did in the PlayStation 1 games.
and you end up punching them by accident half the time, I feel.
It's a game that I think had a lot of potential if the developers had a better engine to work with. I don't know what tech powered this game, but goddamn, it wasn't strong enough for what they were trying to do. And also, I want to note real quick,
Yeah.
the GameCube and Xbox ports of Legends 1 come out like 5 months before Legends 2.
Why would they do that?
I have no idea, but I've always thought it was really weird that I got Legends 1 for my birthday and then like fucking Black Friday, my mom took me to Kmart to buy the Game Boy Advance and I think the GameCube version of Legends 2.
So
And I'll
strange.
talk about the Game Boy Advance version because I played a little bit of that. I got my fucking DS to work.
We can
I suffered
we can go
for
into
this
that.
one.
I have a note on Legends of Wrestling 2 Game Boy Advance, and that's that Eddie Guerrero has shit brown pants.
He does, yeah.
Some of they're reminiscent of like those 80s bootleg film wrestlers that you could get, like the Road Warriors have like trunks. And if I remember correctly, they have like,
Coco Beware has trunks.
yeah, they all look very
Owen Hart has
strange.
trunks. Some of them are easily identifiable, like Bret Hart, Hulk Hogan, Roddy Piper. And then you see like Coco Beware, and if I didn't tell you it was Coco, you'd be like, "Oh, it's just a black jobber in green trunks." Okay, because
Yeah,
he doesn't look like Coco does in the console game.
no, they all have
Um,
very strange attire.
so I'll say this: this game does a good job of playing like Legends of Wrestling on a Game Boy Advance.
But
It
that's
does
it's
actually
not
do
good.
that gameplay system justice. Let me get to it, goddammit! The bad part is this game plays like Legends of Wrestling on a Game Boy Advance.
Yep.
I was a weirdo when I was a kid that like any decent approximation of a game that I liked on console on the handhelds, I would just be like, "Oh, this is cool." So I loved Legends 2 for like 15 seconds. Also, it needs to be noted, it's Legends 2 in name and sort of roster only. The ring mat just has the Legends of Wrestling 1 logo. The menus look exactly like Legends of Wrestling 1. They recreate the Legends of Wrestling 1 menu music. In career mode, you don't have the cool shit that we're going to talk about with the console game. You have the Legends of Wrestling 1 career mode. You pick your character, you have either Jimmy Hart or Lou Albano as your manager. It is it's a game, man. It is a game. Don't play it.
No, don't. But talking about the console version of Legends 2, the intro in this game starts with Superstar by Saliva, which
Yeah.
some of you may remember from WrestleMania 18, the pay-per-view, not the game. The two notes I had regarding this intro, you've got the British Bulldogs doing Total Elimination, which
Yeah,
yep.
they sure do.
Also, there's flashes of barbed wire in the intro, like when they show Abdullah the Butcher, and I don't know. I guess maybe you can say, well, you don't really associate barbed wire with Abdullah, but they also show it too when King Kong Bundy shows up. So I'm like, why? There's no barbed wire in this game, so that's strange. Um, there's shoot
Yeah,
interviews in this
a little
game.
bit. Those were great. It should be noted they're not on the GameCube version, only the PS2 and the Xbox.
Right, yeah. I
Well, they're
didn't
also not in the Game Boy Advance version either.
I
But
didn't go through them. I played Hogan's and then immediately started talking about how like his band was like the most popular band in Tampa Bay or whatever, and I was like, hey, fuck off.
oh, I'm sure they were.
Yeah.
Well, so here's the thing: all of them end with a promo, and some of the promos are great. Like the Harley Race one's awesome. The Sid one's good. The Hawk and Bam Bam Bigelow ones are a little. It's kind of like Hawk, and I have a friend who worked with Hawk on indie shows in the early 2000s before his passing, unfortunately, who had kind of said to me once, like, yeah, he kind of forgot like how to be Road Warrior Hawk after a certain point. The Harley Race one's great. I used to quote that all the fucking time, like in fucking junior high. I would just, I don't know, man. I was a dumb kid. The DiBiase one's great because he literally just does like a $1988 million Man promo. I'm trying to think. The Bob Backlund one is fucking weird as shit.
Oh, it's Bob Backlund. That doesn't surprise me.
Oh no, it's weird for like a Bob Back because he's yelling, but then like after every line he like starts to smile. It's so fucking weird. The Hacksaw Jim Duggan one's great. It's Hacksaw. The gameplay in this game is exactly the same as Legends 1. Again, the fucking Xbox and GameCube ports of 1 came out a few months before 2, so obviously they're going to play the exact same. The soundtrack in this game we got to talk about. It is butt rock. It is the butt rock new metal pro wrestling game equivalent of a Tony Hawk soundtrack. If you like Saliva, Trapped, like that early 2000s alternative rock new metal shit, this is your game. And I do love it. So
it's very ill-fitting though.
Soundtrack.
When you've got like Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant and Trapped is playing in the background.
I mean, it's not ill-fitting when you consider like the movesets and the aesthetic of the game. The idea of it playing during Hogan and Andre, I agree. It's so dumb. This game's got a lot of really weird arenas in it. There's a Roman Coliseum arena that does like some weird daytime lighting effects. It's my favorite arena in Legends 2. I think it looks so fucking cool. This game's roster is massive. They added a ton of characters. Andre the Giant, Roddy Piper, Sid, Bruno Sammartino, Bam Bam Bigelow, Abdul the Butcher, Davey Boy Smith, if I didn't already say him, Bob Backlund, the Steiner brothers. That's already a lot of guys. Oh, the Nasty Boys are new to this game.
Their theme song, is that menu music from Mayhem or was it Backstage Assault?
Mayhem.
Okay.
For sure, Mayhem. Hogan has American Made, speaking of theme music.
Bret Hart.
David Penzer does the ring introductions.
Yeah, Jimmy Hart.
Oh, yeah, Bret
is involved with the music this time.
Yeah, so you get like a really cool remake of the Hart Foundation music for Bret and Owen.
Yeah. You've got sound likes for like Bam Bam, Ted DiBiase, Coco Beware, Jimmy Snuka. Jim Duggan has
2 different versions of Girls in Cars.
Yes.
Fuck Duggan's WCW theme. There's 2 different versions of Girls in Cars in this game.
You can't get enough Girls in Cars.
The Martel one I like better. The guitar is a little bit more pronounced. It just I love that version.
Terry Funk has a.
We're gonna work that into.
Girls in Cars has got to make its way into this show somehow.
Every episode.
Ted DiBiase has a really great, not Ted DiBiase. Terry Funk has a really great Desperado ripoff.
Yeah, there's. I'll tie this in with the Jimmy Hart song too, the Legends of Wrestling song. Jimmy Hart has a knack for making like really fucking cheesy music, and that Funk's theme is so fucking cheesy. I love it though.
I know, yeah, it's great.
It's great. And the Jimmy Hart theme, he kind of runs down the whole roster of the game, and there's the moment that's supposed to make you tear up where he goes, "Where have all our heroes gone? In our hearts they still live on." The chorus is catchy as shit. Hogan's American Made and the only real giant is still Andre, which
Jerry Lawler
that's not true.
Be the king.
Because we are the legends of wrestling. The music in this game, though, is a huge, huge, huge step up from the previous game. And also, I want to make a note about career mode. They actually had David Penzer record a shit ton of first and last names, and this kind of claiming a little bit of trouble because you could straight up name your created wrestler Undertaker, and David Penzer would announce him like the Undertaker. Uh, Same with like Brock Lesnar, Triple H, Shawn Michaels. They had all of these names that you could fucking you could give your created character, and I thought that was the coolest shit ever. And then it was kind of like gone in
Yeah.
Showdown. I
They
didn't like the create a wrestler mode in any of these games.
wasn't there something similar with EA Sports MMA where they had names in and they ended up like updating the game and removing a whole bunch of them?
That sounds familiar. The career mode's different this time, and I actually think better. So it's the same. Go through you. We didn't explain this in the Legends One breakdown. You complete the 5 territories, so you hold the 5 regional belts. You then go across the U.S. to win the U.S. title, and then finally is the world. So you're going after the world's championship, which is kind of like the idea the U.S. champion's #1 contender to the world title kind of thing. Which I have zero confidence that Acclaim were wrestling historians such that they knew that that was the thing.
No.
No chance. Um, Before you start each region, the game will do this thing where it'll bounce a little. It'll have like a bunch of squares with numbers, and like a highlighted square will bounce around, and you press X, and depending on what square you get a different storyline for the region. And some of them are like the New York promoter is an Italian mob boss who makes job guys sleep with the fishes. There's one where like his daughter takes an interest in you. There's one where the female promoter in the southeast hits on you. There's one in the southwest where you fight the Von Erichs. If you play as Jerry the King Lawler and you go to the southeast region, you are put into a feud with Andy Kaufman.
Was it this one that had Andy Kaufman? It's not him, obviously, because he had passed away, but someone doing like an impression of Andy Kaufman? Or was that Showdown?
I think Showdown didn't have any cutscenes like that.
Right, yeah, so it was this one. Because I was going through the files on the disc one day and I found them.
So like the storylines add a little bit of flavor and purpose to what you're doing beyond just beat everybody, win the title. Some stuff will happen like where you have to do a body slam challenge against Big John Studd, which is just a button mash mini game that gives you coins for the gambling mini game, so you can unlock like Owen Hart, British Bulldog, the Nasty Boys, etc. Sometimes you'll like once you hit 33%, you might get put into a ladder match that makes you the #1 contender, but you still got to do all the bullshit to get to 100% popularity to actually get the title shot. It functions the same way. You get a cutscene at the start of the region, cutscene at 33, cutscene at 66, cutscene right before the title match. You defend the belt. I think you defend the belt like one time, and then it's on to the next territory. It's a cool career mode. I love the idea of this a lot. I wish it would have been a little bit better executed. Because you would think if there was a guy who had been a big star in 4 regions when he came into the 5th, you're not going to be beating up. Like for the first chunk of each territory before you get to the U.S. region, you're fighting just like generic wrestlers in high school gyms, or like occasionally you'll get one of the actual arenas in the game. I would think if somebody was a big star everywhere else in the country and they descended upon the last region they needed to before they hit national TV, they'd be a big enough fucking deal where they would just come in and fight stars.
They actually,
That's just me.
when I played the career mode, they put me in 2 triple threat matches to start off with, and I said no thanks.
Oh, so you can actually just back out of career mode and go back in, and it'll give you a different match.
Oh really? I didn't know that. Okay.
Unless it's one of the things where like the storyline forces you into it, you can always just exit, go back in, and keep doing it until you get. Because I'm not playing a fucking 3-way or a 4-way match in that game unless I have to. The AI is brutal. They will gang up on you.
Oh yes, and also I had Brian Pillman run in, so I had 3 people against me at once.
Oh, that's another thing. Sometimes the storylines in each region will necessitate somebody coming in to do a run-in on you. If you just hit them a couple of times, they fuck off.
Yep.
They did add the cage match and the ladder match in this game, and the cage in this game
horrible.
is fucking-gantic.
It's huge, but the way you get out of the cage is so stupid.
Yeah, you gotta punch the fucking door off.
Yes.
I'm not gonna lie to you, I've always thought that was hilarious, and I was so mad in Showdown when they added in the button to call for the door to be open.
It's funny, but it doesn't make any sense. Why the hell do I have to beat the goddamn cage to get out?
I mean, you can repeatedly Irish whip your opponent into the door. That
I
works too.
guess. Yeah, that
Just takes
works.
longer. So once you get the door off the cage, because you can climb up and over, but again, the cage is fucking massive. Your character will like start his way through the ropes or her way through the ropes if you're playing as the female promoter or a woman's wrestler you've created. It'll bring up like a stun meter where you've got to button mash
Which is
to step
horrible
through the
too.
ropes.
Like, oh, so tedious.
Oh, I'm good at button mashing. That game is a reason why I can button mash like no other. I like this cage match more than I like the Aki cage match. But that's like saying I like getting hit in the balls with a baseball bat more than I like getting hit in the balls with a sledgehammer. They both suck. The ladder match is okay. You as you progressively damage your opponent, the object will come down, and then you just climb the ladder and fucking do the button mash to get it. Whoop de do.
We should mention too that the gameplay is faster in Legend 2 than it is 1. They definitely speed it up quite a bit.
Which is good, but also kind of. Oh, I gotta say something about career mode. When you hit the fifth region, the game removes the HUD in career mode. You have to go in and turn the HUD on in the pause menu for every match.
Well, that makes some
Um,
sense.
oh, I'm sorry. No, I think it's actually in the options menu. So you have to triangle options and turn it on. Now, if it was the thing where the reversal window's the same and the move link window's the same and you can kind of get the rhythm of it, that's one thing. This game changes the reversal window, like where it's at on the meter. It changes the size of it. It changes how fast the fucking thing goes for it. So, like, what's the point of turning off the HUD? You're basically fucking the player over.
That's a special feature. That'll be something that's in the 2K23, no doubt. That'll just change for the hell
Patch
of it.
number 3.
Yep.
Patch number 3, you go into fucking Myrise and the HUD's completely gone.
You know what? I expect that to happen at this point. I did like
If it does happen, I want to check. 2K.
I did like just a little note in regards to Ted DiBiase that they call him wrestling's richest man instead of the $1 million man to obviously avoid any potential lawsuits with WWE. I thought that was great.
And he also has like Mid-South attires as
Yeah, he
well.
does. You talked a little bit about the arenas earlier. I hate the arenas in this game. I hate that when you play in Canada, you've got to have maple leafs everywhere. I hate when you play in Mexico, you've got to have the Mexico flags everywhere. That shit annoys the hell out of me, and they do it in a whole bunch of games. Like the TNA game did that as well.
I like the Rome Arena. It's the only one I actually play in.
Yeah, the Coliseum. Are we ready to go into Showdown? Okay,
Yeah, so
it starts off great because you've got "Bang Your Head" by Quiet Riot for the intro of the game,
and it's a re-recorded version too.
and it fits it fits this game perfectly, much more than Saliva or anything like that.
And also, I want to say this real quick. They sync up the song or the video to the song such that when the line "I've got a mouth like an alligator" comes up, Roddy Piper's on screen. I've always loved that.
That's great. Yeah.
They knew what they were doing.
You've got more cool themes in this, like Kurt Hennig is in this game, so they use Sean Stasiak's Perfection theme from WCW. Randy Savage also has his WCW theme. I could have sworn the Rock and Roll Express at one point in one of these games had a Rockers ripoff. Maybe in the first game, but in this game the Rockers ripoff is entrance music 8. It actually would make sense if they had that theme because they did use that during their time in WWF. So Gary Michael Capetta doing the ring announcing, which is neat. The arenas in this game are fantastic. This is the one where they actually got the arenas right this time. So I'll run down the arenas in this. You've got Madison Square Garden, and this is licensed, with a WrestleMania 10 entrance. On the ring apron, it says Showdown, and it's the classic WrestleMania colors, the black ring apron of sort of like a gold look to it. You've got Boston Garden, you've got Maple Leaf Gardens, you've got Wembley Stadium. The Omni with a classic NWA stage, and I can't remember which show this was. Maybe it was the Clash of the Champions. I looked for it, I couldn't find it. You got the Tokyo Dome, in which has like a WWE Raw stage. Texas Stadium. You've got the Spectrum with the old Spectrum logo on the mat. Moscow, which is a fictional arena with Lenin pictures on it. Kobo Arena, Legends Coliseum, which I also believe is fictional. LA Sports Arena with WrestleMania 7 apron. the Cow Palace, the Sky Dome, Greensboro Coliseum, Dory Funk's Funkin' Dojo, and you've got the Mid South Coliseum. All the arenas look fantastic. The domes have a funny thing where they aren't able to fill up all the seats in the crowd, so there's a lot of empty seats in the dome arenas, but they look great. There's no doubt that you're playing in the Tokyo Dome or the Pontiac Silver Dome. Just the work they did on the arenas is just crazy.
And not Tony Schiavone. I'm sorry, I saw a picture of Tony Schiavone. Well, Tony Schiavone, Bobby Heenan, and is it Larry Zabisco
Yes.
are the commentary team for this game. The commentary is interesting for reasons I'll get into when we talk about career mode. Gary Michael Capetta does the welcome wrestling fans and fucking introduces the arena, but then he gets into like this will be a 1-against-1 versus match.
Yeah.
Like that's a claim, not knowing what fucking business they're in, which it goes even more so for this game because this game's developed by the All-Star Baseball team because Acclaim shuttered the Salt Lake City studio after 2 came out, and only a handful of people came over for Showdown. The dev diary's there. You can Wayback Machine that shit, or at least used to be able to. This dev team was composed of people that had not watched wrestling since they were kids. And I think them attending current, at the time, wrestling events may have sealed this game's fate in some ways, in terms of like the stages being based on WWF in a lot of the arenas versus just having the old arenas as they appeared. But a lot of them do. Like Greensboro Coliseum is just the Greensboro Coliseum. The Spectrum's just a Spectrum. I think because of Acclaim's financial troubles, which this series no doubt exacerbated, you're paying to license Hulk Hogan, Sting, Ultimate Warrior, Randy Savage, fucking Andre the Giant, Bruno Sammartino, Sid, Piper, like basically almost every big star of the last fucking 3 decades. You're going to be paying out the nose a little bit. I think given the state of this company and like this game's dev window was super short because it's announced in October of 03, literally the day Here Comes the Pain came out. The game comes out in June of 04 and it's clearly unfinished.
Yeah.
It is clearly them pushing a game out in like a last ditch effort to make some fucking money. I can excuse to a degree that this is not a particularly great game. And I'm being real fucking nice about it. You still have the like weird move sets, but I think the roster and the licensed arenas and the feeling of the game kinda helps me overlook that this game's a complete fucking trash pile. Because the meters for like move links and reversals, they're gone. There's pop-ups on screen now. And there's like on-screen directions. If you're just walking near your opponent, there'll be 3 fucking things that pop up that are like strike, grapple, Irish whip, shit like that. Props for making the game more accessible, I suppose, but also like, man, this feels like this is kind of like Legends of Mania, where you kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater. There was probably a way to make what you were trying to do work, but unlike Legends of Mania, this was probably a case where they ran out of time and budget, and it was like, well, fuck it, we got to do something.
I think, and 2, maybe we're being a bit harsh with the move sets. I mean, Andre's got all the signature moves like the Doctor Bomb, Razor's Edge, Dominator. You know the stuff that he used to do back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, we've all seen the clips of Andre the Giant doing the Dominator
absolutely.
on Kamala
the
at the fucking Spectrum.
Randy Savage, for some reason, has like an Owen Hart Tombstone or Pile Driver as his finisher. I don't know why.
No, his finisher is the elbow drop.
I swear to God, like I went to the top rope and it didn't pop up for finisher, right? So
well, there's a reason for that.
It's
When
bullshit,
you have the full meter, when you have the meter, it says finisher. You just flick the stick. He'll fucking lay the opponent out with a punch, walk over, and do the elbow drop.
I swear to God, I did that, and he did the Owen Hart Pile Driver. He did not do an elbow drop because I was like, what the fuck? Also, he came out with George Steele. And I think George Steele is supposed to be set as a rival for Randy Savage due to WrestleMania 3, that time period. But instead,
in the lead up, yeah.
George Steele accompanied him to the ring, and I don't know why. Rick Martel in his Titantron, I noticed he does a crotch chop.
Yeah, as he did, sure.
Maybe to the ring rats, but not during the matches. I don't know. Shit, man, what were they doing with this game? This game.
Hogan rips his shirt on his Titantron video, but not like in the actual game,
Yes. The gameplay is
which was very frustrating because he had just Mania 19. He ripped his shirt in that game, and in SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, fucking current Hogan ripped his shirt too before they took him the fuck out.
Yeah. The gameplay in this is actually slower than Legends 2. They've slowed it down a bit. I have that the reversals work sometimes, not all the time.
Yeah.
Strikes seem to do more to build up your finisher meter than actual moves do. So you can
Yep.
strike, and your finisher meter will build up quite quickly. But if you do actual moves, it's not going to build up as fast. I couldn't seem to create a wrestler with black hair. I created the Great Muta, and I put the hair as dark as I could, but it was dark red, dark blue, whatever the color I was going through. I couldn't seem to create black hair at all.
I had a similar issue making Muda in that game because I wanted to play him versus Sting when I was like 13.
Yeah, so did I. I wanted to play Muta versus Sting because they've got his paint in, and they've got like they don't say the Great Muta, but they've got the Great and Moto or something in there. I think there's actually hidden files that might say like Pearl of the Orient and stuff like that. I'd have to double check. There's classic matches in this, so you can play through exhibition, and it's sort of set up like a ladder where you complete one and you get unlock the next one. You've got like
It's a tournament.
Yeah, you've got Hogan versus Iron Sheik, Savage versus Ultimate Warrior, Savage versus Steamboat, Bret versus Owen, Dusty versus Abdullah, Hogan versus Warrior, Road Warriors versus the Koloffs, Sting versus DDP, Bret Hart versus Roddy Piper, Sabu versus Terry Funk, Randy Savage versus Hulk Hogan versus King Kong Bundy, Jake Roberts versus Rick Rude, Andy Kaufman versus Jerry Lawler, and the final match which is Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant. You do get the commentators; they'll bring up classic feuds and stuff like that. I was playing Tito Santana against Rick Martel, and they brought up Strikeforce, which is great. Strikeforce attire is in the game, hell yeah. But I imagine they'd bring up Strikeforce if you're just playing as Tito Santana or Rick Martel.
Yes.
It doesn't necessarily have to be both of them in the ring at the same time.
Yeah, so I want to say something on the classic match mode real quick.
Yes.
I loved that mode. I thought that mode was really cool. I liked the load screen with the historical facts, like the breakdown of the match. The Jerry Lawler Andy Kaufman match, where you start with no fucking health as Andy Kaufman, was the most bullshit thing I've ever played in a wrestling game. Fuck the Aki handicap matches I bitch about all the time. I basically had to stand there and do the fucking ear clap to Jerry Lawler for like 15 minutes to fucking win that match. It felt like.
Yeah, I mean,
it was brutal.
Those matches are a great addition, though. That's an excellent idea. And as we were talking about like the commentary and they bring up stuff, the commentary it's weird. Like Larry Zbyszko in every single match I played, he's like, "Let's get to it." He never brings up the game of human chess, which is something Larry Zbyszko would always say. Heenan obviously, unfortunately, was going through cancer at this time, so his voice isn't what it used to be. And the commentary overall from Schiavone and Heenan is not as good as say Backstage Assault or Mayhem.
No, it's fantastic in both of those games. And Backstage Assault, it's like the only redeeming quality.
Absolutely. Burning Spandex.
What I will say, because we got to talk about the career mode, which
Showdown Challenge.
Yeah. So Kevin Kelly, that motherfucker, was allegedly the writer of the storylines for this game, of which there actually really aren't any.
I did not know that.
So, yeah, he wrote columns on the Showdown website too, and I was like, I remember this piece of shit. Rock used to call him a name that we're not allowed to say out loud anymore, and probably for good reason. Where was I? Oh, the fucking career mode. You pick a wrestler, no matter who it is. If you pick Sabu, you will start in the 1970s.
Yes.
You play like, I want to say five or eight matches per decade. And then once you win the 70s championship, you're on to the 80s. And then you win the 80s championship and you're on to the 90s. And the fucking final boss fight is against Hollywood Hulk Hogan. The day I got this game, I got to tell the story of how I got this game at some point too. But the day I got this game, I beat the game with the Ultimate Warrior in one sitting. It took me like 2.5 hours. It was not fun. And my friend who came over to my house, because like he was like, "Oh, you got the new Legends of Wrestling game," because that was a big deal to us because we were nerds. And also, it was the day of the second TNA anniversary pay-per-view, the second anniversary pay-per-view. So the show where Jeff Hardy shows up to fight AJ Styles. And I just I didn't understand why this mode was like Warrior didn't wrestle in the 70s. Why don't I start in the 80s? Why is every decade accompanied by like a shitty fucking cutscene? I don't know, man.
Because
This
there's no, they don't. Okay, so this is the thing, and I hate to bring this up again, but I'll go back to it because personality. We talk about shut your mouth and here comes the pain, and how like the wrestlers have specific move sets for them. They have specific stances and all that. Personality is something that these games are very much lacking. They've got rip-off themes, they've got taunts and stuff, but they don't really look very good. The animations don't really look good in any of these games for the most part. It's missing the personality of these legends. If I'm going to play as the Ultimate Warrior, as you said, they should start the career mode in the 80s. It should have Ultimate Warrior's moveset. I shouldn't be doing the gorilla press into power slam like Goldberg. It doesn't make sense. Personality is what a lot of these legends are known for. For Legends 2, you had them all doing shoot interviews. You didn't have any of them doing promos in the game. You didn't have Hulk Hogan doing voiceover for Legends 2. What? It's missing personality. That's a big thing for these legends that you need in these games, and it doesn't have it.
I agree. Also, I want to say if you take the aesthetic of Showdown and the roster of Showdown and the arenas from Showdown, combine them with like the high school gyms and stuff from 2 and give me the career mode from 2 in the gameplay from 2, I'd probably be like, I'd say that'd be a good game. Unfortunately, we can't mix and match things from this series. You're absolutely right that a lot of the personality is missing from the wrestlers in this series, and it's especially obvious in Showdown, where like you have these legendary arenas faithfully recreated. Some of them have entrances they didn't actually have, but if I showed you a screenshot of the goddamn Pontiac Silverdome, you're gonna know it's the goddamn Pontiac Silverdome. It's very unfortunate that like the rest of the game didn't follow like the commitment to like the attires are faithfully recreated as best they can be too. We've talked a bunch about the Owen Hart attire. They couldn't say Slammy Award winner on it, but they sure have things that look like Slammies.
Arenas are fantastic. The attires are great. It's everything else. It's like the meat's missing, you know?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And again, great ideas, terrible execution. That's the story of this series. And I was somebody, and we're going to segue into this because this game does have a significant impact on pro wrestling in a, like, not even around, in a very direct way. This series is influential, but this was so big to me at a time when I was buying all of the 80s WWF videos I could from like the video stores to have another way to interact with the wrestlers from that era. But what I was getting in these games wasn't what I was seeing in the tapes. And it did create a bit of a disconnect, but I'll always have a soft spot for these games because of that nostalgia. Like these games, if these games came along in like 2007, I don't think I'd be as nice about them as I currently am being. But they were there at like kind of the ground floor of me becoming a giant fucking like nerd for 80s wrestling. So I have a little bit of an affinity for them, but these games have it's a domino effect. We get the classic superstars action figure line because there is a demand for classic wrestlers. We get the legends. You think that Legends roster in SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, almost all of whom are fucking in these games, is an accident? You think like the WWE realizing there's a market for a Ric Flair DVD because these games are selling well and a classic Ric Flair figure got made on Ringside and it sold really well? And people are really excited because it's WrestleMania 20 and we might want to actually start to fucking making money off these old guys because Acclaim's doing it. And don't kid yourselves. The WWE absolutely knew what Acclaim was doing. They've worked with Acclaim for a decade. They kept tabs on this shit. They fucking threatened legal action because you could make a guy called Brock Lesnar in Legends 2. These games are the reason that the 2K series has such a huge bank of models of legends to draw from for whatever their next game is. If we don't get these games, like the last 2 decades probably looks a lot different in terms of the biggest promotion in the world becoming the IP farm that it is, where I can walk into my room and see all these action figures of all these guys both, huge names and like not so huge names. We don't get that without the Legends games. So to that end, I can't say I hate this series. I love this series on a lot of levels. It's just they're not fun to play.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I can't. The way I view it is like I'm basing my opinions of the games of what I played. It inspired all this stuff, and that's great, but I
Oh, the
can't
games are still shit. Yeah.
exactly like I can't say like I can't give it extra points because of what led from these games, right? The games
I will.
themselves, well, I can't do that because I really did not enjoy going back and playing these games. Yeah, I mean, you've said it several times now, but like great ideas and poor execution. That's what this whole series was. You've got this
Yeah.
idea for a Legends game. That's fucking fantastic. When this game came out, I was like, God, how old was I? Like 15? So I grew up watching the old Coliseum videotapes and stuff. I watched wrestling since I was like born, basically. There's not a time where I can remember where I didn't watch wrestling. We used to watch all the old Coliseum tapes when I was very young, and then I'd watch early 90s WWF, WCW, NWA, all the way through everything. So I'm getting this game, and like I know all these wrestlers, and I'm very much looking forward to it. And then I play it, and it's just this fucking shit. Like the move sets are absolutely awful, and that's again personality that's not there. Like why is Abdullah the Butcher doing Stone Cold Stunners? And I've heard, like I said before, I've heard the arguments that they need to fill up move sets because the Legends didn't have a lot of moves, but other games found a way to do that. You can't just throw random
Yeah.
shit at the wall and say that'll work. People like that. No, that's not how things go. It robs them of their identity basically. You know?
And we're still seeing that now with the WWE games where Steve Austin does power bombs and German suplexes, and so does fucking Randy Savage.
It's so stupid. Like it's not hard to do a Legends moveset. It really isn't. If you have to reuse some moves, like if you have to put some in the same slot, do it. I'd rather do that than see them do stupid shit that they've never done.
But we also kind of gave Aki a pass for giving The Rock a vertical drop brainbuster. So
It's true. Like that, they didn't do perfect, but like they also like had that personality. I keep saying it again and again because I can't think
yeah,
of anything else to say. You
The
know,
Rock actually had the shit The Rock does, and it looked like how The Rock did it. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I'm just saying I can look past how atrocious in a lot of ways these games are because of what I ended up getting that was actually good.
yeah.
But no, when I sat down with 2 and Showdown, I was like, fuck, these are like worse than I remembered.
It's
Like,
unbelievable how Acclaim had this whole history of like they when you look at them, you'd think that they're like a developer, a wrestling friendly developer. Like they had so much wrestling content over the years and they never
yeah,
got it right. How could you
no.
how could you fail so many goddamn times?
I think they didn't understand what wrestling actually like. If we're being honest, they have nothing to do with like Mania Challenge, and Superstars. They didn't develop those. Everything after that is on them. I don't think they ever understood what the fuck wrestling was.
I just remembered something from these games that they couldn't get right was when you're getting counted out on the outside of the ring, it starts with 10 and goes down.
It does it in the PlayStation games too.
What? That's not how wrestling
Yeah,
works.
Warzone, Attitude, the 2 ECW games. It does it in those games too.
Like, how couldn't you not get something so simple correct?
And also another thing they did on in the Super Nintendo games. We're just gonna bitch about Acclaim now. Fuck this shit. If I leave the ring while you're on the outside, the count for me starts at 1, and it doesn't restart the count for you. That doesn't make any sense.
No, it does not.
If I go in the ring and go back outside, it doesn't. It breaks the count for me, not you. That's so stupid. I genuinely don't think these people actually watched what they were making beyond like God. It's they really were 2K before 2K, weren't they?
Pretty much,
Holy
yeah.
shit! Holy shit!
It's
No, because I mean, like the 2K fucking people, they watch WWE enough to be like, okay, this is the most like base level fucking we know wrestling's a work bullshit. People roll out of the ring in 3-way matches, so we'll make that mandatory and we'll
oh,
fucking nerf you if you get up.
I hate that.
Like that's some shit Acclaim would have done.
Oh, absolutely.
Acclaim made wrestling games for 12 fucking years. And like, I love the Super Nintendo games. I still think I can have fun with them now. But like, there's the fucking the count out thing just shows like they didn't have a clue.
I couldn't believe that when I played it because I completely forgot about it, and it's just something that simple that they fucked up.
Yeah, and also like you mentioned the calling somebody your manager to the apron. There's no disqualifications in that game.
They didn't have
What
to.
point does it serve unless you're getting pinned?
They didn't have disqualifications in the 80s. Don't you know that?
I mean, if you hit somebody with a chair on the outside of the ring in 80s WWF, you weren't going to get disqualified because, and this was something I loved that WWE got rid of in the 2000s. The fucking outside of the ring was like the dead zone. If you did illegal shit outside, it didn't fucking matter because they would always say on commentary, like Jesse Ventura would always be like, "It's the outside of the ring, McMahon,"
You
and
know,
fucking you would you'd have Vince screaming because the honky tonk man hit somebody with a guitar outside, or if if Hogan did it to Honky, it would be the other fucking way around.
if these Legends games had a disqualification, but the only disqualification was for throwing your opponent over the top rope,
Yeah.
that would have been amazing.
Why has no game implemented that?
Because it's dumb.
Well, no, I understand it. Like, it's the idea of like a fall from that height could seriously injure you.
Nah.
But like, why did the Legends game not have that? What the fuck?
It didn't have a lot of things, so
Yeah, that's true. They didn't. I these games are the best games that Acclaim made. not that that's not that that's like a fucking like huge bar to like clear, but
wouldn't
these games really.
wouldn't you say like Raw and Royal Rumble were better?
Yeah, you know what? That's tough.
You would have had more fun with those games, though, right? Like even playing the Royal Rumble in those
Yeah.
games was better than the Royal Rumble and the Legends games.
Oh, don't even get me started on the fucking Grand Wizard screwed me in the Royal Rumble and Legends of Wrestling 2 career mode when I was in like fucking sixth grade. I'd like 20 years later, I'm still not over it.
You can't even in Showdown. You can't even pick a new wrestler when you're eliminated. That's the end of the match.
Yeah, that's how it is in career mode and No Mercy too.
I don't like that.
Obviously the fucking branching paths. Yeah, Raw's better than Legends of Wrestling. Maybe not in terms of roster, because like
No, definitely
that's
not.
the benefit of a decade in a fucking DVD versus an 8-bit cart, but or 16 megabyte cart. But yeah, these are games that I was happy I revisited because sometimes my memory will cloud how bad some aspects of these games really were. Like the fucking career mode thing where the HUD goes away. I don't want to talk about shitty games next week. I do know that. But I also feel like we should talk about EC Dub next week.
Oh Christ. Yeah.
Or
Okay.
Dub C Dub or something. I don't know.
We can talk about ECW. I mean, it would make for a short episode. So.
Yeah, 2 games plus the alleged. Well, we already talked about what could have been on this one. I don't know, man. We could go in a lot of different directions for a lot of different things.
I feel like I'm going to be very angry
next
for
episode.
the next few weeks.
Well, then I don't know that playing the ECW games is a good idea.
No, we'll play them because you know what? At least it's got the crowd taunts and all that shit. That stuff is fun. So yeah, whatever.
Raven, you're a bird of prey.
Just I've brought this up before, but they don't even say like they'll be like, "You're the man, Yoshihiro Tajiri," or "Get him, Tommy Dreamer." They don't say their last name. It's always the full name. Anytime they say anything. Actually, they call Tajiri. They call him Yoshi sometimes. I think.
Yeah, that's a little dumb.
Get him, Yoshi.
Fucking Mad Goat will crush you because they had to have the Acclaim guys and the ECW backstage guys in the jobbers.
You suck, Steve Carino.
Well, one of my first message board usernames was Steve Carino as God, so I can't co-sign.
He never got his All-Star Pro Wrestling 4, you know. He said it was coming out. I'm still waiting for it.
Me too, honestly. I'd love to see Square jump back in
Oh yeah.
to the wrestling game world. It also should probably be noted that Throwback Entertainment bought Acclaim and the library of games and IP back in like '07. There was rumors of a fourth Legends of Wrestling game, and also rumors that they'd signed Goldberg for it, and obviously nothing ever came of it. One what if I'm going to drop before we wrap the show up with whatever our last topic of conversation is going to be. There was a point where Aki were free agents. This very brief period after No Mercy was released and EA decided we're gonna napalm Backstage Assault because we're gonna fucking have this game and it's gonna be better. Imagine if Acclaim fucking decided they wanted to get Aki on board for the next ECW game, and we ended up having a happy accident where we had 3 Aki developed Legends games.
That would have been amazing. I mean, they already had
Yeah.
experience, doing movesets for a lot of these legends because of Virtual Pro. I mean, Terry Funk, Abdullah, Andre, obviously. They had Hogan and Revenge.
With his
So
fucking powerbomb finish.
yeah, I mean, well,
He
which is
did that shit.
that's goofy, but I mean, they had some experience with legends anyway. So I mean, we talk about the Aki movesets too and how there was inaccuracies there, but when they got them correct, they got them really damn correct. I mean, they watched footage and they would try to
Yeah.
recreate those moves, so they would have done a hell of a job with some of these legends.
As opposed to having like Danny Doring and fucking Spike Dudley doing mocap.
Did Nova work
Or
on these
whoever it was
games?
for Nova did, yes. I also know that like Showdown was like Johnny Swinger and Chris Sabin and Kid Cat.
Oh, okay. Because Nova's attire is in Legends 2, and I was like, he must have been a part of this.
Which is really weird because he's already in OVW by that point.
Yeah, but you know what? He invented movesets, so he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, oh yeah, he's the innovator of offense.
What if it was Nova that came up with the movesets for this game? Like, give Andrea this shit. Fuck you, Nova. I hate you.
Yeah, fucking Mike Bucci, you piece of shit. Why don't you go sell the Simon system, you asswipe?
Ah, the Gemini.
Fitting that guy had such a shitty gimmick, given that he's apparently a giant fucking douche. I'm kind of thinking Dub C Dub for next week. I'll probably flip flop on that.
I mean, yeah, whatever you want to do, it's good with me.
We'll figure it out. Is there anything interesting happening in the world of wrestling action figures?
The
Did any other
Luna Vachon retro run up for pre-order last night.
did it?
You did, yeah, on Figure Collectors. Not something that I've pre-ordered yet. I don't really like the look of it. It doesn't have the same style as the Hasbro's. You can say what you want about the Bull Nakano, but that was undoubtedly based on the Hasbro's, and the Luna doesn't look like it's based on them at all.
No, it's so hard to say what like the Hasbro of a woman would have looked like because we didn't end up actually getting one. I do think 100% Cello was on the right track with Bull Nakano. I do also think there's zero reason that figure should have been made that small. And to anybody that was hand wringing about like, well, she's in scale. Hasbro didn't give a fuck about scale.
Oh no, not at all.
What the fuck are you talking about?
No, I like that figure.
Fucking...
The skin color was off, definitely.
Yeah, my biggest gripe was how tiny the figure was, but like I'm not going to complain about having a WWF era Bull Nakano figure. Whatever,
No,
it'll work itself out in the end, I'm sure. If they ever do the 7-inch one that they were hyping up, I know that the Brian Clark, I'm sorry, Brian Adams' crutch. I know the Atom Bomb BCA ripoff BCW, whatever that line's called. I know that went up for pre-order, and that's an interesting figure, clearly based on, in part, body-wise, on the Owen Hart / Jeff Jarrett figures from like 1999.
it's a nice looking figure.
Yeah, my thing with it, because I don't know why I'm like this. I wish he was in like a 1995 era attire, because then he would be closer to fitting in with Series 1. That's 1993 Atom Bomb. That's like beginning of his run Atom Bomb.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So like he looks great. Like without the goggles on, that head sculpt is fantastic. But it was one of those things when I saw it where I was like, could have just done the the attire that the majors did, even if you just did like the blue and yellow gimmick he had in like late '94, that's still more accurate to BCA Series 1 than what they're doing. But it doesn't look bad by any means. It looks fantastic.
Yeah.
And we saw the Ultimo Dragon and Sunny Ono, which I think I mentioned last week. Those look great. I might have to grab those.
Yeah, I'd like to get that Ultimo Dragon because I'm a huge fan of Ultimo Dragon, so that's definitely one that I was looking at. I'm trying to think else what's going on with figures now.
Oh, Ringside Collectibles and Mattel announced that next week, I think on the 26th, they're doing a live launch of the Mega Powers 2-pack at Hulk Hogan's Beach Shop, and there will be Elite Squad reveals. They have not said what they will be, but
Interesting.
also I think Mattel Steve also said the 30th there's going to be a gallery going up on WWE.com. So I don't know if one is tied to the other. Usually, if they do in-person reveals, it's equal parts stuff they're about to show official pictures of, but also like sneak previews of stuff that are down the road. Because if you remember in 2018, they did the reveal event at like a toy store in the UK where they showed off Ultimate Edition Series 1 for the first time, where we didn't know who was in the series, really. We just knew that like the Ultimates were coming, and then like Steve and Bill both talked about like these are going to be the most detailed WWE figures ever made, and we're 3.5, almost 4 years into that line being a thing at retail, and that's my favorite WWE line we've ever had. I love the Ultimates. I love that they've branched out to like the Coliseum collection, which we talked about last week. I actually will be getting my Hulk Hogan and Terry Funk this week. They did ship because I paid them off when I got paid this week. But yeah, there's not like a whole lot. Like we didn't get any AEW figure reveals because they didn't do a fan fest for Full Gear. But we did get the AEW game trailer that we talked about at the top, and I'm sorry I turned that into an Ultra Pro Wrestling rant, but like, goddamn, Fight Forever is going to be good though. Everything we've seen looks great. That trailer only further convinced me they're going to drop an all timer. We just need a release date, please.
Yes, hopefully it sticks to that February release that's rumored. And please show us the electrified barbed wire match.
Yes. Yeah. You know what? We were talking earlier. The tag team trailer needs to be next. Fuck that. I want to see the exploding barbed wire match.
Yeah, they showed the baseball bat, the barbed wire baseball bat was actually electrified in that trailer as well.
That's right. Yeah. And also, certain items, if you throw them like the microphone, they fucking explode on
Yeah,
contact. That's awesome.
and the bottle of bubbly too.
Right. Yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah. This game is like, that's kind of like Raw 1 levels of like you knock open the crate and there's just some dumb shit inside you can like hit your opponent with. I love it.
Did you notice too
It's like
that
the only thing good I'll say about Raw 1.
they added Rick Knox as a referee as well?
Did they?
Yeah, there's two referees in the trailer. There's Aubrey Edwards and there's Rick Knox.
I did not notice Rick Knox.
Yeah.
It's one of the few times in my life I can actually say that I didn't notice him.
So
What a trailer this is.
that confirms at least two referees in the game now.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the other referee is one of the most incompetent refs in the history of pro wrestling.
Rick Knox is a really bad referee. Actually, did you notice? We actually didn't talk anything about the pay-per-view, but the Jamie Hayter Tony Storm match, which was completely overbooked and ridiculous.
I thought that was a great match.
It was Attitude Era levels of like running. The referee, I think, was Paul Turner, but like Britt Baker's like draped across the top turnbuckle, and she's pulling it off, and she gets knocked off, and Tony Storm like falls into the exposed turnbuckle, and Paul Turner's like staring at the mat because he has to keep himself distracted from seeing Tony Storm hit her face hit the steel. It was ridiculous. Like there was so much of that in like '98 WCW as well, where the referee has to distract themselves because there's nothing else going on from stopping them seeing an interference or whatever. It bothered the hell out of me.
I liked that match a lot. Also, I was very much down on that pay-per-view until like the Sting and Darby match because they're the most reliable pairing in all of pro wrestling.
Yeah.
Oh no, there is Rick Knox. Look at that guy. Doesn't have the elbow pad in the tape though.
No, he looks quite generic, but that Rick Knox anyway looks generic. So
What a game this is gonna be. I'm looking forward to it. Last night kind of restored a little bit of my faith in AEW, but I do want to say that crowd fucking needs to wipe their ass for chanting "fuck CM Punk."
uh, I don't care. CM Punk's
I
CM Punk's a grown ass man. He can handle himself. I don't really care what the fans are chanting unless they're chanting something horrible and offensive. And fuck CM
well,
Punk.
they followed that up by chanting Colt Cabana, so
Neither of those things are like I don't care anymore. Like what's done is done. The fans may not know that obviously they don't know the whole story, but they've got their version of it, as people usually do.
yeah.
So whatever, it is what it
It's been
is.
fuck Colt Cabana around here for a long time. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, there was
Not
one.
a big fan of him.
There was one. I don't know if you heard the Denise Salcedo story from last night.
Oh God, the creepy guy who got into the media room. Yeah,
Yeah, like what the fuck?
yeah. People need to like not act like fucking incels, bro.
And then
That's.
I don't know if you saw his response to that, but like
No, I didn't know that he responded.
yeah. So she's like, there's this creepy guy, and she's like, here's the video, and he responded to the tweet saying, "Where are you?" And then he tweets out like to Will Washington, he's like, "Where are you? Can you tell me where you are, please?" And Will Washington's like, "Here's my seat," and he's like, "I'm here." And like he didn't tweet anything for a while because I was looking at it because I was like, what is going on with this? And then like people are like calling him out, and he's like, "What? What did I say? I didn't say anything. What did I do? I didn't do anything." And then he deleted his Twitter was deleted. So yeah, I don't know what happened at the end of the day, but
God, that's fucked.
yep,
Wrestling fans got to do better, man. They really do. There's no reason to do that
no, it
at
was
all. Like,
it was really messed up when I was reading. I was like, somebody did what? Like they went to the media section and whispered in her ear like that she has a nice ass and shit. Like what?
yeah, like that's something you would have like read about on the internet in like 2007 and just been like, geez, that's rough. Now it's that guy should probably be sitting in a jail cell.
Yep.
That's fucked. And having said that, I was gonna say something else about Fight Forever's trailer and I completely fucking blanked. Oh, Hangman Page says you can create a wrestler like him, but why would you want to? You could create a good wrestler like Jun Izumita.
The whistleblower for Noah.
Goddamn right.
For people who don't know, he wrote a whole book like exposing Noah and the bullshit that went on there, like the gambling and they were involved with and stuff.
And then he died of a heart attack
Did
a
he?
couple of years later. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, maybe I just forgot.
Yeah, he passed away and fucking there were people that on Twitter and on, like a couple of message boards because I was still looking at message boards when Jun Izumita died that like they tried to float the conspiracy theory that it was like Yakuza playing like long game revenge on him.
Yeah.
I don't know. If that is it, that sucks. Izumita was a fun comedy wrestler. I would absolutely love if all his stuff was in Fight Forever.
Classic Ugandan wrestler.
Yeah. One half of the most annoying tag team in Virtual Pro Wrestling 2 with Giant Kamala.
I never understood that gimmick, but I didn't question it at the same time.
No, I mean, if he wanted to fucking paint himself up like Giant Kamala, just let him do it.
Yeah, why not?
Kamala was obviously okay with it.
Didn't he change
I've
his...
always wished that was like actual Kamala. Unfortunately, it's not.
No, I think that confuses some people too. Like when you look at like old reviews of Virtual Pro or people talking about, they're like, even Kamala's in the game, and it's not who you think it is.
No, but I still lied to like 12-year-old me when I saw Giant Kamala 2 on like a rename guide. I was like, I'm just gonna call him Kamala.
Yeah.
I don't care. But I think that'll probably about wrap us up for this week.
Is this our
So we'll
shortest episode? I believe it is. Yep.
is it?
It is indeed.
I'll be goddamned.
Some people might actually
We
get
finally
through this
did
one.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry for the episode length. We picked the dumbest possible fucking topics and ramble at length about all of them. But Next week it'll be either WCW or ECW. I mean, WCW would be easier for me because I can just play all of the fucking games. I have all of them. I have the ECW games too, including the Game Boy version of Hardcore Revolution. So we're gonna do one of the other big three, and then someday we'll loop back around to 2K, and that'll probably be the end of this podcast when we do, because I don't want to talk about wrestling games anymore if I gotta play 2K20. No, I would rather not. But for Liger Busa, I am Mongo. This has been Critical: The History of Pro Wrestling Video Games, and we'll see y'all next week.